Okay then. Some people asked me to do some map tutorials, and I'm gonna do one quick one. And you'll have to bear with me because I have to do this on my phone because I don't actually have a setup for this at all. But the hardest thing I've noticed people do or try to do is mountains, and mountains give your map the scale it needs. If your mountains are too big, it makes your entire continent look way too small. And the same goes in reverse. If they're too small, then it makes the continent look way too big. Now, if you want that, that's fine. That's entirely an aesthetic choice. But here's how I start off with all of my mountains. And I'm gonna make a much more in-depth one later. But this is a quick and dirty mountains. Now, one thing a lot of people do, and there's nothing wrong with this, is they'll that, just triangles, and that is perfectly fine. I had to pause it for a second there, but that is perfectly fine. It all depends on the style you want to go for. Me personally, if you've seen my work, I tend to go for a stylized realism with my mountains. So one thing, if I ever do a style like this, I'll always do, at the very least, you want to shade in at least one side of the mountain. And that's going to give it more a sense of depth and make it look a little bit more, I don't know, professional. But what I do when I'm not doing a simplified version like that is I will actually start with one. I'll choose where I want the peak of the mountain range to be, essentially. And I'll draw one mountain right at the peak of the mountain range, the very center. That's not entirely realistic because mountain ranges will actually follow a line, and that center line will be the tallest mountains, and then you'll get smaller around there. But I like to do just one mountain in the very center, and then I'll build around that in the direction that I want the mountain range to go, whether that be north or south or east or west or northeast or whatever, northwest rather in this case. So anyway, whoop. The easiest thing to do is to just give yourself a triangle to start off with, just a base. Because mountains are essentially just giant pyramids that are formed by nature and have no logical sense of direction in most cases. And this is again where I love map making because I have ADHD. And a lot of map making is actually you make a general shape and then you go over it with some squiggles. And squiggles are fun. And I love squiggles, and I'm going to bring this out like that. Squiggles really help me with my ADHD, and they may help you. So I got into map making to help with my ADHD and to give my D&D players a bit of something material they could touch and hold in the middle of the game. So there we go. That's a basic mountain for me. And a lot of people will say, don't shade your mountain until you're finally finished. I am very different. I will shade where I know shadow is going to be. And I will usually, for mountains like this, I'll generally shade with cross-hatching or just lines or whatever you want to call it. And the reason I do that is so that I've got a basic shape that I'm happy with. And I want to make sure I keep that basic shape. And you can always add lines on a mountain to make it look rockier or newer. Unlike faces and humans, the more lines on something in regards to like mountains, the newer it is, geologically speaking. The smoother it is, the older it is because of erosion and stuff. So I'm gonna bring this little side down just like this, and just a little boop like that, and bring that out, shade it a little bit. I can stop right there. I'm good, and then I'll just branch out like this again, And one thing I'll do for what you just saw there is like my quick mountain, my quick and dirty mountains. When I get to the outer edges of my mountain ranges, I'll just draw a little pyramid. And there we go, like that, and then I'll mess it up. And I'll just shade that side because that side is going to be in shadow. And try and remember where your bigger mountains are and where your lighting is, because it will bring that up like that to make it look more connected like this. It will cast shade on other things. So in my mind's eye, these mountains here are in light because this mountain is just a little bit further ahead. It's not on top of these ones. But this whole ridge here is going to cast shadow on my little itty bitty dinky mountain here. And then, go back in, darken up some of your lines. If you don't have micron pens or detail pens like this, that's fine. You don't need them. You do not need them at all. I got them because they help me to show the detail on my mountains. And here's another thing I love about mountains is so I fucked up tracing my line, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Mountains and coastlines are very much similar in this regard. No, just bip, 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 bip. It's actually really difficult for me to do this with one hand because I'm having to hold my phone to do it. But in an oddly fitting way, it's helping make my mountains look a little bit more jagged. Now, the advantage to having these micron pens is just because of how thin they are. You can really get in there. This is a 005. This is, I think, one of the smaller ones you can get. I don't know. I'm not a professional artist. I just like to draw things. So you can really get in there with some of the details. Now, I changed my style up a little bit with this one. I started shading in areas with the pen after I drew in details because I wanted to make a little change. And this is where doing this digitally can help, because I wanted to make a little change, and if I was doing this digitally and I didn't like this change that I made, I can just undo the shading. And I can go back to using pencil as my shading and using the pen to help the mountain pop out of the ground, so to speak. No pun intended. But yeah, that's some quick and dirty mountains. I will hopefully do a much more in-depth version when I get some both time and a setup that can actually record me doing an in-depth mountain range. But that is the basics. You just want to draw a triangle, squiggle around it, and shade it a little bit. For my style anyway. Like I said, I do the central mountain because I was really inspired by the concept of the Lonely Mountain. And yeah, if you want a more, there are a lot of styles out there, and I can do a few more tutorials on different styles. I've done top-down, I've done, like I said, some simplistic symbol mountain ranges. My preferred style is this stylized realism. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this if you made it this far. If you want to learn a little bit more about how to map some mountains and just do map making in general, I have a Patreon. The link will be in the description below, but it is patreon.com/taldozmaps, TALDOZ maps. I'm going to be posting tutorials on there, and it's just $2 for every in-depth tutorial. So this was like a 10-ish minute, a little over 10-minute tutorial. I'm planning on my in-depth tutorials to be at least 20 to 30 minutes long. So for $2, you get a 30-minute essential lesson on how to draw different varying things, be it mountains or rivers or towns, or how to label a map, or how to do coastlines. I know a lot of people have issues with coastlines. That'll be probably my next one. So yeah, take care, guys. Much love to all of you. God bless.